Hope you're doing well. I'm living my life. Things are going great. Hassan, good morning. Hope you're doing great, my man. Ben, good morning, team. Let's leave this old world behind and build a new. That's the theme. That's the theme we're talking about. John, good morning, John. Christine, good morning. Hope you're doing great. Loving the coffee emoji. Good morning, Tom. Hope you're doing great, my man. Good morning, everyone. That's what I'm saying. Hirsch, 23. It's a great morning for a coffee and some BTC. I like the rhyme. Daniel, good morning, Bitcoiners. Are your bags ready for the pump? It looks like we've got that kind of a week, huh? Assalamu alaikum, Muslim Bitcoiners. So future no coiners will have CBDC based UBI. Isn't that like mixing two poisons? Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll last forever, right? I don't think they're in perpetuity like that, but I think it's sort of the middle ground of how we go forward. That's just my guess. But I could be wrong. Maybe everyone wakes up at the same time, right? Maybe we all live long and prosper, right, Tafina? Good morning, wake up. Thank you, David. Robert. Good morning, Bitcoin. How are you today? I think Bitcoin's doing great, right? I think Bitcoin is running, right? We got a sunrise, so everything's working, right? We don't have anything else to do today except to have a coffee and talk about what's new. And let's start with what's new, but also fake and also funny, right? We love the funny news. It's only funny news now. That's all we got left, right? That's all we got left. And we have a good theme today. It looks like our prediction from a couple of years ago, even, of red and blue melting away for orange versus green is upon us, based on all the fights that are happening online. But we'll get to that. First, let's talk about our Moscow time. Moscow time. What do we got today? Well, according to Wired, preferring biological children is immoral, guys. All right. So if you're not out there in foster care, if you're not out there in the tunnels below the synagogue in Brooklyn, if you're not out there doing other stuff to get kids, like running a foster care thing, right? If you're not doing that, you're immoral, guys. You're immoral. All right. That's what Wired has told you. This is from the New York Times Arts, right? What's going on there? Well, it turns out that singer Halsey identifies as a tri-bi. Okay, tri-bi. What's a tri-bi? Bisexual, bipolar, and biracial. All right, there you go. Right. What was it yesterday? We had the triple-demic. So imagine, I bet you some of the tri-bis are going to get the triple-demic. Right, because yesterday we had 3 pandemics at once. That was in our Moscow time, right? We had COVID, RSV, and the flu, right? What if Halsey, with her tri-bi, gets a triple-demic? What are we going to do then, right? She'll be a tri-bi triple-demic, right? That's what the news is telling us. And I think the odds are pretty high. I think people who are tri-bi are more likely, that's my science, I'm going to do a report on it, right? I'm going to do some science stuff. I'm going to get some data, right? It's going to be all sciencey, right? And it's going to say, the conclusion will be tri-bis are more susceptible to the triple-demic. That's a future Moscow time headline. It's a future Moscow time headline, guys. All right, NBC News letting us know that the Biden administration is asking Mexico to help curb the huge flow of migrants into the U.S. as Biden runs out of options to fix a problem that is hurting his polling. This is from NBC. In other news, Biden is actually suing the state of Texas because he's out of options. So he's suing Texas because they were trying to enforce the border. So better indeed to go to Mexico and ask them for help, right? You know, he's already suing Texas. So what's going to happen there? It's not going to work out, right? Now we've got some really amazing political headlines this morning, and this is wonderful. So remember Semafor, the thing that SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, invested in? Remember, it was going to be new media, right? The media for the next generation, right? That's what it was going to be. Semafor, Semafor. They didn't even use a word like the wired or anything like that, right? Semafor, right? I'm going to do like Biden when he whispers the really important stuff. Like he yells and then he whispers the important stuff. I'm going to try that move. Semafor. We're talking about Semafor. So Semafor, it turns out, had some meetings and they published this. Okay. They went and met the White House and they call it presidential privilege. So here's what we found out. Biden's re-election campaign has begun organizing a series of off-the-record trips for top political reporters and editors to the team's headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware, and to meet senior officials, including the campaign manager, deputies, and other high-ranking advisors for background briefings on campaign strategy. Of course, the media's got to meet with the White House to get, the background and background briefings on the campaign strategy. That makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't the media collude with one party? That makes total sense. Come on. Here, let's go on. They're also using it as an opportunity. Oh, there's more to it. Okay, so they're using it as an opportunity to tell the media what they're getting wrong. Semafor published this, guys. 2 people with knowledge of the situation told Semafor that during meetings with reporters from outlets like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and others, campaign officials have invoked a coverage spreadsheet laying out areas where the team believes their reporting has fallen short. So they got to do better. Okay. And I'm saying the same because I want more Moscow time stuff. I need more Moscow time stuff. So I think if they follow what Semafor learned from the White House, we'll get more, right? So if Semafor took good notes when they were being told what to say by the White House, we'll have a lot more Moscow time. So I'm going to be going to Semafor for a lot more content from now on. But we're not done. We're not done. They actually shared the details. All right. So in particular, they said campaign officials have chafed. The campaign officials have chafed about how the media is covering former President Donald Trump. They don't like it. Feeling that outlets are too focused on his legal troubles. So when the legal troubles thing didn't work, arresting him, right? Now they want them to change because it's not working in their favor. Okay. So now that the former president and the coverage of his legal troubles haven't paid enough attention to some of his incendiary recent statements on the campaign trail, right? So they're not going with the arrest him. They're going with you got to pay more attention to what he's saying, and you got to talk about that. Probably correct. Probably correct. Semafor should thank the White House for this editorial guidance. A source familiar told Semafor that with the exception of its recent meeting with the Times, the campaign meetings have been substantive and productive. That's great news. They've been getting somewhere. And that Biden staffers were scheduled to meet in the coming days with political reporting teams from ABC, NBC, The Wall Street Journal, Fox, NPR, Reuters, Bloomberg, and others in Delaware. Perfect. It sounds like we're going to get an excellent stream of Moscow time coming up. So we got to thank the White House. We got to thank Joe Biden himself as one of the greatest news headline guides, like one of the greatest editors of all of these newspapers. Imagine, of all of these news outlets, the White House itself, and they call it presidential privilege. Let's see if they've been paying attention, though, because we had a few other things happen, right? So Washington Post, this is a real headline from the Washington Post, right? So I'm going to read this as straight as I can. This is pure Moscow time right now. All right, I'm going to read this. We talk about the Washington Post every day. Phil Bump and all of these people. All right, I'm going to read a Phil Bump headline. He's contributed. I don't know if he attended the meetings because it sounds like he's still in yesterday's news. Okay, he's in yesterday's news. He didn't get the memo. He didn't hear from the White House about how he's supposed to change his tone a little bit. It's focusing too much on the old stuff, right? But here's another one. This is from the Washington Post, all right? So I'm going to read this straight. Reporter Aaron Blake's guide to what you really need to know about the 2024 election is here, all right? Breaking down the biggest news stories on the campaign trail. That's what they're going to do, guys. We get more. All right. This is the Phil Bump headline that I told you. Analysis by Phil Bump. A flurry of rhetoric at both the state and national level shows how Republican leaders are diverging from past practice and adherence to election results. That's good stuff. Now, it's too much on the election stuff. They're not They're not really, Phil didn't get the memo. He's not digging deep, right, about what Trump used to say. He didn't use vermin. He didn't use that. He didn't say, when Trump said he's going to be a dictator, right? He didn't get into the dictator stuff. It's too bad. It's too bad. He had an opportunity. But good news is the New Yorker did, right? And Victor Shi, who, some people say is an op. Here's what he says about the New Yorker cover. So the New Yorker cover this month has Trump in a military outfit going around the world and doing a bit of a marching step in the military. And maybe he's doing a bit of Sig Heil. Maybe he's heiling Hitler a little. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it, right? Looks a little Sig Heil-y to me, right? So they're going with the Hitler thing, but the Hitler thing, they sort of upped it to Satan lately, right? Because Hitler was, it looks like Biden is going with dementia Hitler. So they got to sort of find a new way to associate Trump with something worse, because the Hitler thing ain't working, right? So, but they still have him looking like Hitler here. But here's what Victor Shi said. No word on whether Victor Shi attended the White House briefing on how to talk about Donald Trump. We don't know. We don't know if that happened. But here's what he said. Holy shit. This is the New Yorker's front cover for this month's magazine. It is perfect. And I hope more in the media will depict Trump this way. It's not hyperbole. It's the truth and it's accurate. Bravo to the New Yorker. This is how it is done, and we need more of it. They think it's working. They think it's working. It's working. It's so good. It's just more. This one's an old. We'll get back to the election stuff in a second. This one's pretty good. This is from my hometown of Montreal, my beautiful hometown of Montreal that I love. I love Montreal. I have to live in Vermont because I'm not welcome in my own country really as an everyday person, right? I can go spend money in there and stuff like that, but they wouldn't let me have a bank account. Like, that's long gone, right? After I got declared a terrorist because the truckers, I talked to one of the truckers, so that made me a terrorist, right? I talked to one of them, and that made me a terrorist. So unfortunately, I can't spend too much time in Canada. I'm a little bit like, I don't know if you guys saw this, but there's a journalist in Canada who tried to ask Chrystia Freeland a question. And it didn't work out for him too well. He got beaten up, and but luckily it was on camera. So, Canada is such a great democracy. We love Canada, right? This is a great country. So I'm not really allowed there. Well, I'm allowed in the country, but I can't really have a life there or anything like that. So the good news, right? Even though I'm in Vermont and I keep a place in Montreal, I still go. All my family, all my friends are there. We go a lot, right? My kids are homeschooled in Montreal, so I don't want to paint a terrible picture of it. But I'm probably going to be ordering all of my Amazon packages now only to the Vermont house. Because in the Vermont house, if someone steals my Amazon package, I can use my firearm and I could do that. And I can also, if I don't want to use the firearm, I can record them on my home security system, right? Because I got cameras, right? I can do that. But in Montreal, I can't do that anymore. According to Montreal police, they've warned the public not to post videos of Amazon curb, like mailbox thieves, right? Stealing your mail, right? That you shouldn't do that. And you shouldn't post the video online after. So they didn't say whether it's okay to record criminals thieving you. I'm not sure if that was in the mix. No, of course, you can't shoot a criminal in Canada, right? Unless they show up with a gun. Well, more than a gun. If you want to shoot a criminal in Canada, they have to show up with a bazooka, because you have to go one level below them in terms of force. So if they show up with a sword, you can only kill them with a knife, right? It's kind of a weird thing, but that's Canada. So we don't know if you're not allowed to record criminals. We didn't get word on that. But what they said was you can't post the videos online if you catch the criminal stealing your Amazon packages. The Montreal police warned that, right? And the reason is it's a violation of the thief's private life. So yeah, the exact headline is Montreal police warn the public not to post videos of thieves stealing your mail online because it would be a violation of the thief's private life. Well, that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. Pretty good for them. And now we get a good one here. This is from Ay, ay, ay. This is from NBC, okay? NPC News. Musk and far right figures seize on Iowa shooter's possible LGBTQ identity. So there was an Iowa shooter, and it turns out that he was trans. Okay, so he was trans. And Musk and people seized on that, all right? So here's what we know from NBC. Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, who owns X, which is where a bulk of transphobic riddled speculation about the shooter's identity was circulating, right? Now, that's what I say. How dare Musk and the people on Twitter be transphobic to this teen who shot children? I mean, he killed them, but I mean, now we don't know if anyone like with the Amazon people, like if they violated his privacy here. I mean, I would go on that angle. But that's more interesting. Now, that wasn't the only reason Elon Musk was in the news, and that brings us to our theme for the day, which is that the orange coin drains the green swamp. So we've talked a lot about how the red and the blue political order has been slowly shifting to orange versus green, woke versus Bitcoin. And it's a realignment that we have been covering for a long time. It's sort of at the source of this morning news show. We're actually covering this realignment. That's mostly what we're doing. And Elon Musk got into a fight yesterday with Mark Cuban about all the DEI stuff. And it's part of a whole bunch of fights that are going on online, these versus battles, and we're going to go through all of these versus battles. If you look at all these versus battles, you'll see that the actual trend right now is already orange versus green. The red versus blue has already gone away. People still think in those terms. People still address them. When we go to the 2024 election, I'm sure all the icons will be red and green because ostensibly you are talking about Democrat and Republican. But more and more, the accurate way, the right frame to put on what's going on, the way that will actually help you understand what's happening is to start seeing things between what is woke, what is funded by lack of feedback loop green money, the US dollar, all this DEI stuff getting paid for. Look at Disney. We talk about Disney all the time. How is it that Disney doesn't care about their losing money? How is that, right? They don't give a shit if they put out more woke movies because maybe the bottom line doesn't matter. Maybe when you're close to the printer, it doesn't really matter if people don't buy movie tickets. You still get the brainwashing out there. So the whole point of what we're talking about here is altering culture, altering arts, altering entertainment, altering all of these things from a very deep and profound level, from almost a root source level. And in doing so, we're going to see that the world is actually already orange versus green. We're already there. So the realignment is obvious to all of us, and we'll talk a bit about it today. So Mark Cuban and Elon Musk got into this fight, right? So Mark Cuban has been saying no problem about DEI, but the best thing happens, right? He's like, I love DEI. Now, Wei Wu, which is a fake account, but I've been telling you to follow this person for a long time, and this person has now gone viral. Wei Wu, I don't know anything about Wei Wu in real life, but the account is hilarious. The account pretends to be sort of a cross-eyed Chinese student who came to America and is very shocked about how shitty Canada and America is as a foreign student. And so the Wei Wu is always criticizing, people who don't respect their ancestors and women who dress like sluts and whore. So Wei Wu has agreed with Mark Cuban's stance on DEI and has said, hey, why don't you make me the 5'5" female point guard for the Dallas Mavericks? Like that's you'd be the most DEI person ever if you do that. If you just make me, and so it's actually taken off. So there's people who photoshopped Wei Wu 5'5" under the net, and you got to read some of this, right? Because the thing that makes the Wei Wu account great is that they know how to write pidgin English, like Chinese English spoken with not all the grammar correct and all the words correct. But here's what you get, right? Hello, Mark Cuban. You acknowledge you bigot. So this is the one where everyone is saying that so apparently Mark Cuban did get Me Too'd. and you've got Elon Musk and others who say this explains it, right? This explains why Mark Cuban is going nuts. So here's what Weiwu says. My friend, I have good news. Honor rocket builder Elon Musk agree with all ex-honor people. He conclusion, I'm most deserved be Maverick basketball superstar. I think my shiny teeth security guard, Texas Lindsay, her marketing skill #1. Hire her, make her business #1. Hello, Mark Cuban. You acknowledge you bigot. I appreciate. This mean you honest. This honor. Now you fix problem. You must become most DEI NBA team. How? You no answer. Please more action. My message box open for contract. I sign quick. So Weiwu is offering to be the point guard, the 5'5" female Chinese point guard for the Dallas Mavericks. And she'll do it for only $15 million a year. So it's a big savings at the point guard position. So, you know, Mark Cuban has a real opportunity here to be the DEI champion, right? You become most DEI. And Weiwu goes on. My security guard, Lindsay, help me acquire Elon Musk approval, be point guard. My security guard, #1 talent. Texas Lindsay, you not just my big teeth security guard. You now management for security and marketing. Elon Musk, please pressure DEI king, make me NBA star. So, you know, it could work out. So Elon Musk also going on saying that Mark Cuban is a racist for what he's doing. He's got a few more of these things here. Let me just get them out. He says, this explains Mark Cuban's ridiculous overcompensation regarding racism. Same thing happened with Me Too guys who go bust suddenly, becoming fake ardent feminists. Wesley Yang writes, according to Mark Cuban, for-profit businesses are free to discriminate by race. Cuban went from insisting that DEI entailed no racial discrimination to meet quotas to falsely asserting that racial discrimination is fine for private businesses. He is deeply confused and ignorant, and for his own sake should log off. For the sake of our entertainment, though, of course, he should keep going on, right? So he also what was the other thing he got into a fight? That you could have purple people eaters from Mars if they want to be a for-profit school. And he also goes and argues that this is the other thing that Elon Musk was referring to when he says, because he got caught up in the Me Too, and that's another thing. He's actually out there in one of these videos now that everyone's going out and getting it, saying he will cross the street if he sees a black kid in a hoodie. So everyone's like, does his basketball players know that? Do his players know that if he was walking down the street at night and he saw one of his players wearing a hoodie, that he would cross the street? Well, there you go. There you go. But that wasn't all that Elon Musk was saying yesterday. So within all of this stuff, right, with the Elon Musk and the Mark Cuban fight, he came out and had another, Elon Musk taking up he's doing everything, I think, right? He's just doing everything. So he fights the DEI fights, going after Mark Cuban. And remember, Elon Musk is getting sued by the US government for not hiring refugee rocket scientists, right? The ones coming over the border. He should go to the border, and he's right in Texas. He should just go right to the border and say, hey, any of you out there, rocket scientists, you're in. Come, I got to hire you, right? I got to stop the law case against me, right? But that would be a mistake, because right now he's also worried about the following, and this is what he said. In the USA, and this is true, this is what we've been saying for a long time. In the USA, you don't need government issue ID to vote, and you can mail in your ballot. This is insane. And now this is exactly the way we're going to be talking about the elections in Bitcoin in Nashville, Bitcoin Nashville in 2024 in July. Because again, the whole thing, don't do what Rudy Giuliani did. Don't talk about elections in terms of, did you hear about the Venezuelan and the plot and the people and this and that? None of that works. It's about systems. It's about engineering an election. It's about the systems that go into it. That's why we've got Peter Todd coming to talk about that. That's why we're going to have some of the best people who actually understand elections, because election systems are actually built by cryptographers. Did you know that? They are. They're built by cryptographers. People who understand Bitcoin understand the trade-offs and the engineering that goes into elections. And I've said it 100 times, and I will continue to say it because it's the most important thing Bitcoiners can do outside of buying Bitcoin and being a Bitcoiner in 2024 and supporting the Bitcoin community and all that stuff. The most important thing you can do with the normal sludge people that you see around you, right? All of the NPC sludge people that will sit around and continue to be scared and what's going on, they do not understand the engineering trade-offs of elections. And we do. We do, because it's why we invest in Bitcoin. It's why we save our money in Bitcoin. It's why we don't buy shit coins. We've learned a long time ago that the engineering trade-offs in Bitcoin that have made it the first to go to the ETF spot market route, the reason why everyone's talking about it this week, the reason why it's in the news, the reason why it's pumping, the reason why all that is the oldest coin. And why is it the oldest coin? Because it optimized for its credibility. It's the most credible because it's the oldest. It did not optimize like Solana and all the other coins that came after for convenience. Bitcoin is not consumer technology. It has nothing to do with it. Now, I'm not telling you none of these other shit coins will ever matter or won't do anything. I don't know. It doesn't matter, though. The most they could do, the most Solana could take as far as market share is it could affect Wall Street. You know, it could, Ethereum too, right? They can affect financial transactions and sophisticated counterparties. That's not worldview building. That's not changing the world at all. That's just adding a new credential that Wall Street people might need in order to participate, right? It's not enough to have a Series 7's license. You got to run a fucking Solana node and an Ethereum sharded node. You know, that was one of the funniest jokes that I saw today. Preston Pish put that out, that Elon Musk, he created an AI image of Mark Cuban running his sharded Ethereum node, because that's what it is, right? Anyone who's into the DEI thing and is not understanding the trade-offs in elections, anyone who supports something like this, right? In the USA, you don't need government issue ID to vote, and you can mail in your ballot. Of course, the famous, and I saw Ashley St. Clair shared yesterday, the famous Avi, I can't remember his name. He's a fella from New York who went on the street years ago. This would have been done in 2015. He went on the street in New York City and asked everyone about needing government ID to vote, right? And he goes to the universities and he asks all the white people, and what are their answers about why you need ID to vote? They say, well, some people don't really know how to use the internet, so they can't get ID. Some people don't know where the DMV is to go down and get their license. So you get all these people outside of Columbia and outside of these other colleges saying, well, I don't know if everyone's smart enough to get ID, right? And then they say, you know, people of color, they don't know where to get ID. Some people said that, right? So then the interviewer says, well, I wonder if I go to Harlem, where you're going to, you know, it's not going to be hard to find an African-American person. I'm going to ask them, do you have ID? And do you know where to get ID? And do you know how to use the internet? So he goes to Harlem and asks a random selection of people, and they look at him like he's insane. Do I have ID? Of course I have ID. Do you know where the DMV is? And they don't even understand where he's coming from. Like, yeah, I know where the DMV is. I got to get stuff, right? Do you know how to use the internet? So, of course, you know, Mark Cuban, who crosses the street if there's a black person there, you know, probably down with no ID voting. Elon Musk letting us all know it's a major problem. And indeed, it's what I've been saying forever, right? Bitcoin, it's the same trade-off. It's the exact same trade-off. What's his name? I keep forgetting his name. Mark Cuban, right? Running a sharded Ethereum node is exactly the same as buying a shitcoin because it's convenient. It's a faster, more sophisticated counterparty thing, right? I've said it a million times, and I will pound it into your heads. The same engineering constraints that exist in Bitcoin versus all other blockchains are the same ones that exist in election systems. You can be credible. You can be the Bitcoin of elections. The Bitcoin of elections is exactly what Vivek Ramaswamy is suggesting. It is one-day voting. national holiday, so there's no excuses. Everyone can go. Paper ballots, everything counted in one day, everything comes out. That limits. So the way cryptographers think about this stuff is adversarial thinking, right? This is something that was a blind spot to me. When I first got into Bitcoin, I knew that my blind spot was cryptography. It wasn't computer science, separate fields, right? Separate. It wasn't programming languages or anything like that. I said, what I need to know as someone trained in law, science, politics, literature, and these kinds of things, what I missed was the cryptographic ideas, and the foundation of those is adversarial thinking. You've got to think like the person trying to break the system, and you've got to accept that it's an unfair fight, that you have to think of every contingency. Otherwise, one weakness in the system will destroy the system. So you've got to expect all these things. It's an unfair fight. And so what I had to figure out was adversarial thinking, and I think I was able to, and was able to understand sort of the trade-offs, and I was able to make the conclusion at that point that the ability to survive these attacks is the most important and prominent thing. And therefore the trade-offs remain between credibility and convenience. That's it. That's all you need to know. Now, Jose says the blockchain trilemma. Yes, it is actually a trilemma, right? So I make it sound like a binary: credible, convenient. It's a little different, human readable. The Zuko trilemma is what it's called, from the creator of Zcash, who is a friend, and I've spoken to him many times. I've interviewed him, spoken to him about this exact stuff. He invented the trilemma before there was even Bitcoin, and he was on the mailing list, by the way. So Satoshi was even in touch with Zuko in the early days. So I was lucky enough to speak to Zuko about all these early things. I knew Zuko before Zcash even launched. So did many people. He's a very easy guy to talk to, and swell guy. So the trade-off that Elon is talking about here is exactly what's going on, right? He says by mailed-in ballots arriving in large numbers, often after the physical vote count, is one of the most horrifying aspects of what's going on, and it's how the magic trick kind of works, right? So Jeff Booth speaks about this too. He speaks about the election stuff? Good news. Yeah, I think all Bitcoiners do. It's one of our important tasks in 2024. Is to not tell people that we know this thing happened in the elections and that person cheated, and we'll talk about Fanni Willis in a second. None of that works, right? If you go down the road of Ruby Freeman and everything that Giuliani did, Giuliani's, he's trained like a normal lawyer. He's from that old world. It's the world I come from. I know why he went down that path, but he had the same blind spot that I had, never filled it. Normal, right? You can understand why. Do you know that I reached out to Giuliani in 2015, before Trump anything? I reached out to him because he started this security consulting business. And I said, well, you should probably get a little Bitcoin mixed in. So I reached out to him in 2015 saying, I was still trying to make my way in the business. And it was one of the ideas that I had that I could help out. So I wrote him a huge, long thing. I never heard back. Would have helped him. Had he hired me in 2015. I was already going to New York and stuff like that. So that's why I did it. I figured if I'm going to New York, I might as well get in touch with this fella. Didn't work out, but what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do? But then from there, right, we get the whole, versus battle between Cuban and Musk and Wei Wu getting involved. But let's go back now to the Fanni Willis story. So Fanni Willis, it turns out, and who could have seen this coming, right? So you guys remember who Fanni Willis is? Fanni Willis is the Georgia DA involved a little bit with the Jack, maybe not. Remember, you need a prize if you can keep all of Trump's indictments clear. Like I can't always do it. I know there's the boxes hoax. There's the fake rape aftermath thing that was totally cooked. The Jean Carroll or whatever in New York. There's the other one in New York with Letitia James, and that's the overvalue of Mar-a-Lago. And then there you go. Yeah. So then it's the find me the votes. Yeah, there we go. It's the Fanni Willis find me the votes thing. So turns out Fanni, who could have seen this coming, right? Who could have seen this coming? Fanni was sleeping with one of the I don't know what it was. Let me read the headlines. This is from Jesse Waters. A sex scandal rocking President Trump's case in Georgia. A new motion says Fulton County DA Fanni Willis financially benefited from hiring her inexperienced lover on the case. Fanni Willis sex scandal, love, money, and Trump, the taxpayer-funded soap opera you never knew you needed. This is from Simon Atiba. You know, he's a great journalist. I gotta love that guy. Greg Price writes, wow, according to a new legal filing in the Trump Georgia case, Fulton DA Fanni Willis allegedly hired her romantic partner to prosecute Trump. He also allegedly paid for lavish vacations he took with Willis, with Fulton County funds his law firm received, which were over $650,000. They went on a couple cruises. They did take some trips to DC to coordinate with the White House, a lot like Semafor did, right? So they're colluding to do this stuff. Now, you got to go check out this one video. So the guy, I think it's called, you know, the N word, and it ends with A, and a lot of African Americans say it to each other, friendly, right? It's like a friendly way to say that word. So he's that word for Trump. He wears a T-shirt, right? And he came down when Fanni Willis did this case. You got to hear it. It's one of, he's like, I want Trump for president, right? It's one of the funniest online videos you'll ever find. So he wears a T-shirt. You'll find him out there, right? It's the N word with the A at the end, spoken friendly between a lot of African Americans, and he comes in and talks about Fanni Willis. Fanni Willis. Yeah. It's very good stuff. It's very funny. Okay. You got to see this guy. He is a national treasure, this guy. I love him. Like, I love him. He's one of the greatest. Trump should get him with him on every campaign stop. He's one of the funniest people you'll ever see. So he's been complaining about Fanni Willis for a while. He's the nemesis. He's got to become a Bitcoiner this year. That guy's got to become a Bitcoiner. He's too good. So that Fanni Willis case is kind of funny. And again, related to what Elon was saying about the elections. But now back to some versus stuff, right? Some versus. So we get Elon Musk versus Mark Cuban. We've got Fanni Willis versus her nemesis. All of this looking orange versus green realignment, but this one's even better. This is even better. So Jimmy Kimmel, remember Jimmy Kimmel? Like the least, like they're all, well, that's not true. Colbert is the least funny. I think we can all agree. Colbert, I don't understand what's happening there. Even when people liked Stephen Colbert and the thing was that fake right-wing guy and he would come on Jon Stewart. I never liked the Jon Stewart show. I was unable to watch any of these shows in the 2000s and after, like unable, because it's the same joke. Did you hear what the guy said? Oh, it's the stupidest stuff. It always has been, right? I didn't mind Conan O'Brien. That was one I could watch. I could watch Conan O'Brien. The rest of them were too stupid. Like I never was able to watch Jay Leno, never able to watch, what's the other one? Letterman, these guys are just not funny. So, and Jon Stewart, I wasn't really able to watch it. But Jimmy Kimmel is in the level of the least funny that I've ever done this job, I would say, right? And so he was called out the other day and we covered it, by Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers said Jimmy Kimmel was going to be on the Epstein list, right? So Jimmy, and he was. He was. So he comes out and he says he wasn't. Craig Kilborn from the late night. Yeah, I didn't mind that one, but it was too late for me. That was always a little too late. And I mean, I don't watch them. I don't watch them. So Jimmy Kimmel, right? So according to the fake news, Jimmy Kimmel challenges Aaron Rodgers with a scathing monologue, right? Scathing monologue. What he ends up saying is Aaron Rodgers went to community college. So he goes with the credentialism thing. So like Jimmy Kimmel still thinks that if Aaron Rodgers went to Harvard, people would be more impressed with his opinions, right? So Jimmy Kimmel tries to get on this guy for going to community college. Jimmy, read the room, buddy. Nobody gives a shit about your credentialist stuff. So Jimmy goes in on this, totally gaslights his audience, right, by not admitting to it and all that stuff. So now Aaron Rodgers was a Bitcoin 2022 speaker. I got to meet him. He's a Bitcoiner, right? We're going to have a situation here where this continues, which I think can only be a good thing. Like, how could this go wrong for Aaron Rodgers at this point? Is Jimmy Kimmel suddenly going to be like an honest guy? Is that what's going to happen? Ben Dominic says, this feels like a major Streisand effect moment. Prior to this whole incident, I had no idea Jimmy Kimmel owned a restaurant with Jeffrey Epstein's executive chef. So Jimmy has done something more stupid than he's ever done before. And I don't see him winning against the Bitcoiner, right? So, and the good news is, I think Aaron Rodgers can actually take down the whole late night comedy show thing. Like they're all, you can actually, if you destroy one of them, they all are the same. So you can destroy them all at once. The human mind can't really differentiate between different people at the top of a wedding cake. Right? They're just like this guy at the top of a wedding cake. They're not real people. They're not funny enough to be identified as real people. It's the same show. It's the same formula. They're all kind of white men, right? We're going to get some DEI up in there, and they're going to destroy them. They're going to be wiped out from this. And I can't see it any other way. I mean, who after this, right? Who after this failure from these people is going to be just sort of okay going on the shows? Now, I get it. You get told by your studio, right? Disney will say you have to go on the Jimmy Kimmel show tonight to promote your show. But if Jimmy Kimmel continues down this path, there's no way that they're going to want to be associated with him any longer. So, yeah, and Jimmy Kimmel is a mockingbird, brainwashed, no talent comedy hack. Not only not funny, he said blind and deaf for dollars. Yeah. Well-paid shilling clown in a fancy suit. So the good news here is that as we move forward, right, and, you know, he's going to start getting the Bill Clinton treatment. So last night, Bill Clinton's library tried to send out just a plain old tweet, right? They said, on November 7th, 1998, President Bill Clinton typed out, and it was a picture, right? So from 1998 of Bill Clinton on a laptop, and it says Bill Clinton typed out and sent his first ever email. Can you guess who it was to, right? That's what they said. Can you guess who it was to? Now, if you actually got into the comments, they had to take it down because every single email was Epstein. He was emailing Epstein. He was lining me up the bitches. Epstein, get me those kids. Like, it was every one of them. It was just that for miles. Like, you could scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and it was Epstein, 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 Epstein. So Jimmy Kimmel is on this path. He's not going to be able to go out in public. He's not going to be able to say things in public ever. It's done. Right? Jimmy Kimmel has created an actual Streisand effect for himself here. And we can only be happy, right? We can only be happy about it because it's hilarious. So, but it gets better. It gets better, guys. It gets better. You know, I told you the contrast on all of this elections and then the voting, right? That stuff too, about how anyone can vote and what's going on here. Now, people starting to put two and two together and analyzing the people coming over the border, what's going on. Some people say they get them to vote exactly as Elon Musk is alleging. You don't need ID. Anyone can vote. And again, I'll tell you guys, I am not allowed as a non-U.S. citizen to vote in U.S. elections. Now, I know not everyone here knows that I'm not an American citizen. I'm not an American citizen. But when I lived in New York City in the lead up to the 2020 election, I had 5 ballots sent to my brownstone in Brooklyn. There is not one eligible voter there, not one, 0 eligible voters, right? I have, my kids are American, but they're not 18. So my wife and I, we're only 4 people in the house. So they send us a bonus in case we lose one, but there were no eligible voters. Now, it would have been nothing And I often tell people that I voted many times for Joe Biden, right? It's not true, but I say it as a way to talk about the 2020 election with people, right? I tell people as a Bitcoiner, I loved Joe Biden in 2020. He was the best news for me, right? He was the best news for a Bitcoiner. He's led us to this point, right? If it wasn't for 2020 and him winning, we wouldn't necessarily be here. I think Trump is probably too good at pumping the US dollar shitcoin, the trash token that is the US dollar, that we would have lost traction in some ways. I really believe that, right? I really did. Now, for the suffering that Americans have gone through, I wouldn't really necessarily have wanted Joe Biden to be president, but it wasn't really my choice, right? We don't get to go on the morality. You have to make the best of what you get. And so I often tell people, yeah, I voted 3 times for Joe Biden. That's how much I wanted him, in 2020. And I usually don't break character when I say it, right? I just say it straight, right? Yeah, I voted 3 times for him. He was great, right? I was a Trump 2016 all the way, but people change, things change, right? So now go back to these people coming over the border, right? Exactly what Elon Musk is saying. Now, a few things happened yesterday. So we get an attack in Fort Worth, Texas. It looks like a hotel, the Sandman Hotel, has a mass casualty accident. A bunch of people died, right? And sounds like it was one of the people who came across the border who did it. Have you heard about it in the news today? No, you haven't, right? Have you heard that the GOP is going to be beginning impeachment proceedings tomorrow on Secretary Mayorkas, who is supposed to be in charge of the border? So this is what's going on. A nearly year-long investigation into Secretary Mayorkas made one thing clear. He has refused to enforce the laws of Congress and fill his oath of office. This committee will begin impeachment proceedings this Wednesday at 10 a.m. to hold Mayorkas accountable. So looks like we're going to get a little more clarity on what's going on the border. And that would just be put into the whole middle of these things that aren't being discussed and all that stuff. But now, the best part of the actual realignment, and the thing that's going to cause and help push this realignment further so that we do really find ourselves in an orange coin draining the green swamp situation, right? We're not quite there with the way I've been describing it, but we're about to be. And here's what I found out. This is from Sid Prabhu. Sid is able to deal directly with the Fed. Now, you guys might not know this, but I was actually a client of the Federal Reserve at one point. So when I was with Kraken Bank, we actually got a bank license issued from the state of Wyoming, and that made the Kansas City Federal Reserve our banker. And we had to buy stock in the Kansas City Federal Reserve. It was like $20 million of stock we had to buy. Of how much, they won't tell you. It was just what's the denominator? They don't know. Just give us $20 million. So we gave it. You get the thing, but then they screwed us, and that's why Caitlin Long is now suing them, right? Saying that there's political bias inside. But all I wanted to tell you was that when they're your bank, they're actually just a bank, right? I didn't know this. I got like the user manual for my Fed account. I received it on behalf of Kraken when I was there, and because I was the strategist for this exact file, I was helping design the year 0 and year 1 product roadmap for Kraken as we obtained the bank license, which is where the proof of reserves tool actually comes from. So if you guys notice that Kraken has a proof of reserves tool, well, that was something I worked on for this explicit reason, knowing that a private bank being able to advertise the actual Bitcoin they have in their accounts, and that users can see inside their account to see how much Bitcoin they have, is the closest we were able to get to someone holding your keys, but it being your Bitcoin, right? Admitted it's not exactly that, but they're not allowed to commingle the money. They're not allowed to lend out money on any reserve basis. There was no fractional reserve lending. The money doesn't go into the middle. And the way we held it was exactly as the Federal Reserve deals with commercial banks when it comes to the repo market. So when you sell on the repo market, which I'm about to talk about, you actually don't create a debtor-creditor relationship, which means that in the event of bankruptcy, the depositor still owns the asset, right? Because there's no debtor-creditor. The truth about it is it's an ancient form of law and is what is used between the commercial banks and the Federal Reserves exactly to not create a debtor-creditor relationship, so they can have even swaps as peers, literally as peers, right? So they're the only peers in the node. In the Bitcoin world, being a peer means obviously something different, but in the case of what we did at Kraken, it was to make sure that the actual Bitcoin we held in your account was your Bitcoin. No matter what happened to us, you could get it out. It would be the same conceptually, even though it's illegal. It would be the same as putting physical specie, like a dollar bill, into a safety deposit box. It's the same idea, right? Even if the bank has debts or whatever, if they went out of business, you could go into your safety deposit box and take your actual cash out, like the actual same bill you deposited in there. So that's the way to understand what we did. So now, all this to say, the Federal Reserve actually sent me like a user manual and like an onboarding form, and they have like the discount window is got like a UX and a UI, like it's just like a shitty software company, and that was a shock to me. I thought there'd be something more to it, but no, it's exactly as dealing with a bank like TD or Citi or whatever. It's the same. And the discount window where you get the free money with the no interest, right? That looks like a payday loan page, like for real. When we were there, they still had all the perks of COVID. When I first saw it, it was like, get your money in 10 minutes, $25 million minimum, no wait times, no reasons needed. Because at the time, that was one of the things that happened, is the banks could borrow not as a lender of last resort. That it used to be to say why and for what purpose you'd be using the money, right? That went away. You could borrow the money and just fuck around with it and then pay them back the next day. It didn't matter. You didn't have to justify what you did with it. So that was hilarious. They never let us use it, obviously, right? So there you go. Which is what I was trying to get, because I could see the BlockFi and these other guys were going to be insolvent if Bitcoin went down. It was very obvious they were paying too much money for cash, and the yields they were giving out were too high. So we had recommended Kraken not build a collateralized lending platform and instead put time and attention into proof of reserves, because that would be the next thing, right? After these things went belly up, and I think we were right. But here's what Sid Prabhu. So the feds are all different, right? I was dealing with the Kansas City Fed. I don't know what kind of UX UI they have at the New York Fed, but the New York Fed is a powerful node in the network. And this is what I found out, right? So Sid goes and he says, I am extremely disturbed by what I witnessed in Lower Manhattan last night. I worked on Wall Street for years, near the New York Fed. Last week, I went to grab a few treasury bonds, only to find out that almost everything was trading below par. I asked an employee at the Fed how banks are still solvent if their collateral trades at a discount. He said the Fed lends them more than the value of their bonds, at less than the federal funds rate. I was shocked. Next, the employee told me that banks can even borrow from the Fed and lend it right back and make an immediate arbitrage profit. The Fed can't do anything about it. When they do take action against insolvent banks, the executives aren't penalized at all and go to different banks where they can arbitrage the Fed all over again. I have no words for what I see happening to this bond market that I no longer recognize. Before I left the Fed, he said this. They give the bankers more power than the regulators. The bond market is completely out of control. Now, all of this comes in the context of the Bitcoin ETF coming out this week. This is going to be the actual contrast that moves things into red versus green, or orange versus green, because the ETF is going to actually be a counterweight to the failure of the Fed funds rate and the bond market. That's its destiny, right? And you can already see it. BlackRock has destroyed, they've fired 600 people from their ESG department this week. So you can already see BlackRock making a decision that it's not going the ESG route and is going the Bitcoin ETF route, right? Because do they want to be with the Biden people as the bond market is broken and all of this stuff is coming unraveling? Of course not. And they have to watch themselves, right? So the contrast is already there. We get this from CoinDesk as well, that Bitcoin is actually decoupling from NASDAQ. It's decoupling from the normal stock market with the ETF speculation. That means that Bitcoin is starting to do what we always said was the most important thing, that it decouples from the rest of the market, isn't seen as just this other tech stock or anything like that, that it's becomes something altogether different. In this case, altogether different means a way to bet against the system, to short the actual US governance system. And it looks like we're going to get there. It looks like we're going to get there real quick. And it looks like now that we understand these things, this is what Pete Rizzo, who I've worked with for years, wrote about Peter. Remember the thing a year ago? So Pete does these really great historic tweets, like exactly a year ago or 10 years ago or blah, 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 blah. So remember last year when Peter Zeihan, right, a Mockingbird asset who we followed, has been outed. He's already done the whole I'm leaving Twitter because Elon Musk. He tried that last year. He's still on it, crying and doing a smirky little thing, right? So remember what he said. He did Joe Rogan exactly a year ago yesterday, and that's where he said Bitcoin is going to below zero a year ago, right? According to Pete Rizzo, fintech expert Peter Zeihan arguing Bitcoin would crash to below zero exactly 1 year ago. Ever since, Bitcoin is up 140% and is the world's best performing asset. This is how you out these morons. This is how you out the insidious cancer that is people like Peter Zeihan and the rest of the Mockingbird assets. The rest of the people that are running cover for the swamp are getting outed at a rate we've never seen before. And at a rate that by the end of this year, we're going to be understanding a lot more about how these things were manipulated and exactly who is part of the swamp. And it's going to become widely known, something we haven't really enjoyed before. So here we are, guys. We're at the actual shifting. All of these versus battles, right? Elon versus Cuban, and the Kimmel versus Rodgers. All of this breaks the mold of left and right, of conservative liberal. Zeihan now versus Bitcoiners, right? He's on the side of the Fed, the Fed funds, right? And the banks. So the world is realigning in a way that's perfect for us, that we've predicted for a long time, and that should see either a complete meltdown of the United States in 2024, where it's like Canada and we know it's just a shithole and the mask is off, right? Just a complete and total shithole. And we've got to actually fight to get it back. Or we drain the swamp through understanding how to short the US government and how to laugh at it. And I think you're going to get there. If you look at what's going on with the farmers in Germany today, Eva Vlardingerbrook has been a big part of this. It looks a lot like the trucker situation in Canada, right? Now, as much as I make fun of Canada, I still believe that the truckers thing and what Canadians did there is going to be a type of D-Day in World War III. It was a major victory, right? The system of control failed. It did not work. Kicking out everyone's bank account, radicalizing me even more, was not a good thing. It didn't work out for them. And it's not going to work out as the year goes on. And I think, anyway, America is going to clean house this year. And we're going to see the world foundationally in terms of orange coin, green swamp. And we're going to be able to fix it. We're at the cusp of the golden age, guys. 2024 is part of the new world. 2023 was the last year of the old shit. We're there. All right, let me see what the Rumble folks are saying, and then that'll be the show for today. Rumblers, what's up? Hope you're doing great. Here we go. We're getting lots of viewers on there. Let me see what the chat says. Story is from last August. Oh, shit, is it? Oh, no, that one. Yeah, Trump owns even more crypto than first known. New documents show stories from last August. CoinDesk, I didn't know that. I didn't read that one, Lance. I'll have a look. Narwhal Taco says, good morning to the Rumble Remnant. We love it. Trump hiles cheeseburgers and Cokes about it. We love the cheeseburgers. What part of Vermont, homie? I'm up near Smugs. I'm a little further north than you, Joe Mama 42. I do go to Smugglers occasionally, but I'm really on the border. So I'm closer to J-Peak. J-Peak is my front yard. Row Core, Canada has an average IQ of 91. Militias are better than narc pigs. See Montreal, it's true. Seize the trans, Ray Core says. Hormone blocker, turning trans kids into killers. Could be. I'm not transphobia. I just hate stupid frauds, indeed. Yeah. Transphobic equals anti-medical malpractice, anti-medical fraud. Yeah, it could be. I was going to say he is emailing Monica, but Epstein fits fine. Sharia Bitcoin says. Monica, come on, another turn. Narwhal says, I kind of hope Gary denies the ETF because I want to watch the backlash. Oh, wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't it be fun? Though I'm sure he's been there. Kimmel on the list was fake news. Oh, was it Tips McGee? Okay, I guess it was just the. Was it just the chef? Was it just the chef? Was it just the chef? I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Still, I don't think Jimmy Kimmel is on the not blackmail side. Again, the one of my big things that I learned in 2023 that makes 2024 different for me. I always knew the blackmail thing was bad. It looks much worse. It looks much worse than it was. Kaiser said, eventually the government will seize the Bitcoin held in the ETF fund and send investor USDC CBDC. You think this is possible? I would be afraid of it. And it's only possible if state capacity remains somewhat high. And that could happen. You get a little more attack, a little more China stuff, and it could be. Yeah. The Punjab Indian farmers' protest was the largest in history. It should be the D-Day. Yeah, you're right, Dr. Satoshi. It was right before the Canadian. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, I remember that, Doctor. I do remember that. And that was very big. And I think that was the same as the Bangladesh, like no fertilizer stuff, right? If I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, not being able to push down on these people was the beginning of the change, right? And I think that was the beginning of the end for the Peter Zeihans and all the rest of the frauds. So we're gonna win 2024 in the bag, guys. We're loving it. All right, that's all I got for today. I hope you have a great day, everyone. I shall see you all tomorrow. And the news I anticipate will be as funny as it was today, because there is no more like normal news. It's just funny news. We only get funny news now. The Fiat has delivered only comedy now. None of it can be taken seriously. So Moscow time gets easier, and all of that gets easier, right? Thanks. I understand what you meant. Agree. Yeah. And also, Dr. Satoshi, I mean, I have a bias in the sense that I was directly involved in the Canadian situation. So it just changed my outlook. But yeah, we'll be able to see this as a global pushback when we actually drain the green swamp and the orange light illuminates people's vision a little better. We might actually get a real history book written on what happened between 2020 and 2024 one day. I hope so. I hope so. All right, everyone.